Go for it.
Beautiful. I have hit record. So, hello, and welcome to the Rock Metal Podcast. I'm your host, John Harris, and today on Rock Metal Podcast, we have what I'm going to call a Power Talk series. I've got Charlie Dawe on today, who runs Cynical Music, a record label out of London, with quite a few stellar artists on. We've had Van Tenor on off of Syndicol. I mean, I could go down the list of artists that we've had because, remarkably, Charlie has a talent for harnessing other talent, and his roster doesn't suck. So one of the things you're welcome. So one of the things I wanted to do was invite Charlie on to ask him, as somebody who runs a record label, some of his wisdom, some of his advice, because I found that a lot of the people who are in the audience for the Rock Metal Podcast are in bands, and they're curious about the backside, I guess we'll call it, of I'm in a band. I want to be over there. Ooh, the grass is greener over there. Well, let's talk about over there. So, Charlie, welcome to the show.
Hello.
So, I guess that's the big question. I'm in a band. I want to be on a record label. It's over there. What is over there? What is a record label? What do you do?
Wow. What a broad and fascinating question. I guess the general kind of remit for any label is to facilitate the idea of getting someone's music out to the wider audience, the big wide world. Obviously that works on many different levels, from breaking a new pop act to putting out a kind of underground extreme metal record or something like that. But it's essentially just kind of amplifying visually, sonically, raising the profile and just getting as many people switched on to whatever it is that person's trying to say with their music. And I think that's one of the reasons I kind of started Syndicol, was because there always seemed to be this like really weird divide whereby you can have you can get picked up by a small label, which is run by, a guy one afternoon every week out of his, basement or whatever. Or there's the other end, which is like the major label where, they throw everything at it, but they take a lot as well. And there just didn't seem to be a lot of middle ground. There used to be more. And I'm not going to whinge about how, everything was great, in the 90s with this nostalgia and everything. But you had a lot of cool labels, you had labels like Sub Pop and stuff who weren't massive, but they'd pick up a couple of really good bands. They put out Nirvana, and there seemed to be this middle ground of support and help for artists, but not asking the world. And they wouldn't give a whole bunch, but they wouldn't take a whole bunch back. And I figured that's somewhere I could try and kind of hover for now, at least. Get people out there, because a lot of the acts I've signed have been people with literally no profile at all, nothing whatsoever. In fact, we're just putting out the first album for an artist at the moment called Venom, and the guy had nothing at all, no songs released, no social media profile, nothing. And now we're kind of, he's getting a bit more traction, putting out a vinyl and a release. And so, that's kind of, in a roundabout way, what we're trying to do is amplify people. We're trying to get people to where they want to be. Because because when you say people come to us and they say well, how do I get over there? It really depends on what over there is for that person. Because for some person, it's just they just really want to have a good back catalogue. Other people want to be touring with huge bands. Some people kind of have it in their mind of being an arena rock band. Other people want to just make albums of glitchy white noise, and that makes them happy. So I guess my goal is to try and get those people to where they want to be along the way.
Yeah. Sidechain the white noise to the pink noise, and then that sounds cool. Make a little hi-hat out of brown noise.
Yeah, clearly you know your way around a studio.
Maybe. Now, something you mentioned a couple things that I wanted to touch base on. Number one was, well, what is over there? So that's a really good point for, especially any bands listening in right now, is, well, kind of have an idea of what it is that you want, or maybe even what you're doing, because what you're going to be doing is amplifying. So it's be the guitar, because if you don't have anything plugged into an amp, then there's nothing there to amplify.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite frustrating, because obviously I'm an artist first and foremost. So I've had those annoying conversations where you go and meet with a label and you sit down with them and all they really care about is looking at the numbers of where you're at the moment to see how much further they can push you. So they don't really want to do a lot of the legwork. But yeah, there has to be something of substance there to push in the first place. And it doesn't have to necessarily be substance that I particularly like. It doesn't have to be something that I would personally go and listen to like on my own time. But it has to be something that there is like a conviction and a belief in that they want to kind of push it as far as they can. And I do get some bands like approach us and they're like, oh, well, we've had like, 1 million plays on YouTube, whatever, and we're doing this and doing that. I'm like, well, sure, but that's very fickle. I know people with no social media who play packed out shows and people with millions of plays who can't play to 2 people in a bar. So it's kind of getting a good idea of where they want to go with it. And I don't really agree with just kind of going along to one of their shows, seeing how many people they're pulling in and then going yes or no. Like, I'd probably say over half the people on SYNDICOL I've never actually met in person because they're all dotted around the world and we've never met. I've never seen them play. And but I believe in what they're doing musically and, the vibe.
Because something you also mentioned, and I'm looking it up right now on the website, syndicolmusic.com, you said Bantam and that you had nothing. Isn't that risky to take on somebody who has absolutely nothing and then put in that legwork that clearly other labels, if they're not willing to do it, there has to be a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a business point of view, SYNDICOL it's on shaky ground, like in the sense that I don't really kind of I don't make anyone sign like crazy contracts, and I let everyone gets to keep their own material. So that's like number one like kind of thing you wouldn't do with a label, is that you'd remain the copyright owner of their music, but I don't. I let everyone keep their own stuff. So yeah, it is risky, but I think knowing how many times I got knocked back in the early days as a musician, and knowing that when you've got that tiny little spark at the beginning, if someone kind of fans it a bit, all it needs is just that one person to like believe in them and go, I reckon you could do something with this, and push them along. And, you keep getting knocked back and eventually you're just going to give up. And it kind of worries me that over the decades, how many amazing musicians we probably lost along the way because they just never had anyone encouraging them from the start. Mm-hmm. And that's sad. Like, even all the musicians I started out with when I first started Ventana, there was like, everyone's gone. They've all just quit. And, they're like, it's too hard. It sucks. No one cares. And they just give up.
Yeah. And
that's just a real bummer. So I just don't want that to happen to other people.
Yeah. You should try running a podcast.
Yeah.
I true story, I get people who come up to me and they're like, John. And I'm like, oh God, don't tell me you just, okay, fine, tell me. I'm going to start a podcast. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? And they're like, but you run a podcast. You've been doing it for years. I was like, I know, there's something wrong with me. Somebody needs to go get me help.
Well, yeah, I mean, essentially, I'm in a band. Like, all I'm trying to do is fill the void with applause from people I don't know. So if I can help other people fill that void with more applause from more people they don't know, then that's great. Like, we're all good.
Yeah. Now going back to, sorry, you were going to say?
I was going to say, well, going back to what you were saying about like what is over there. It is a kind of really vague question as well, because I think what some people expect from being in a band and what the reality is, you can see big bands going on tour with even bigger bands and playing in arenas and stuff, and they still go back to their 9 to 5 when they come home. And it is a kind of a weird illusion that some people think it's you've made it, oh great, we're opening for whatever big band at the giant massive Lemsip arena or whatever, and
Hammersmith.
Like, so we've definitely done it. And that's the kind of conversation I have with a lot of the artists where I'm like, yeah, like we can go and do big shows and big tours, but it doesn't mean you've like made it yet. But even that, it's a weird thing, because it's like, what define made it? Like, I mean,
yeah,
really, you've got to find that point of where you're happy as an artist.
Yeah. I mean, true story, as a result of having done this podcast, and I've now been able to chat with some rather large musicians and be on their tour buses to find out that when they go back home to Sweden, they're actually a massage therapist, or, when they go back home to wherever, they have a day job. And especially during the pandemic, when they weren't able to tour, their day jobs became significantly important. So I had a lot of those conversations.
Yeah.
So,
which is in a roundabout way another reason why I started Syndical, is that I didn't want to have to always work and then do music and go on tour and then come back and work. I wanted to try and at least find a way to make use of my years of experience and, kind of knowledge and things I found out along the way. And if I can turn that into some kind of thing that is a functional working thing that not only helps other artists, but can maybe drive some, revenue out of it and actually create a kind of a job for me, then I was like, well, that's a really cool concept. If I can work from home and be my own boss, then that sounds really cool. And now like we've gone from like a pretty much just an idea and a website to expand it to quite a big kind of thing now.
Yeah. Well, take us back to when you started it. What was that process like? Like, did you know how to start it?
No, I honestly had no idea. The weird thing is, when I started it, a couple of bands like in London at the time, when I'd see them at gigs, hey buddy.
Hey!
Charlie from Syndical.
Hey man, how you doing?
Nice to meet you again, buddy.
Yeah.
That's how you.
I'm doing good.
I dig your t-shirt. That's really cool. You got a Super Mario t-shirt.
Super Mario t-shirt.
Yeah.
I just realized he can't hear because only you've got the headphones on.
Yeah, did you want to chat with him here?
Yeah, go for it.
Hey, Charlie.
Hey man, how's it going?
Good.
Are you guys still in lockdown over there, or are you at school at the moment, or what?
I'm on reading.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I edit the podcast now, so I'm gonna be editing.
Okay, excellent. Very cool. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, you're a full-time editor now. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. And yeah, how's things going like at home? Like during lockdown, is it cool? Is it getting tricky, difficult? Is it fun?
It's getting really hot. Sad.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty much the same over here as well. Everyone's just kind of getting a bit like we just want to go out and see our friends and hang out and do stuff again. So
yeah,
but it won't be long. It won't be long, man. It won't be long.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But yeah, it was good to speak to you, dude. And have a good day. And enjoy editing this episode afterwards.
Yeah. The last episode we had 3 interviews, so our program came and put that in 3 interviewed, but this going to 1 interview.
I hope your dad's paying you well for this work.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, anyway, let me give me back to your dad, and I'll speak to you soon. See you later, buddy.
Yeah, he's actually a true assistant engineer now. I have trained him the last couple of weeks on editing the podcast, so he does the audio and the video. And then now we're working on the admin part of it. So actually like getting it posted, websites, show notes, all that jazz.
Are you worried that if your performance doesn't go well, he might actually just take over your job and, you'll be clearing out your desk and...
Is it bad that the first thing I thought was good?
Well, hey, I mean, he can pay you. Like,
well, that'd be the funny thing. He'd figure out how to make money doing this. And then,
Yeah, he's a clever dude. He's a clever dude.
Very, very clever.
So yeah, as I said, I was after I kind of announced that I'd started this idea. A few of the bands I'd seen around at different shows and stuff, they were like, "Oh, we were waiting for you to do this," and I was like, "Really? Like, I had no idea I was going to do this. I'm surprised you thought I was going to do this." And they were like, "Well, yeah, it made sense." So I was like, "Okay," and that's kind of how it started because bands kept asking me to manage them, and I was like, I don't know, I'm not a manager. And they were like, but you're managing your band. I was like, well, yes, that is true. And so I was like, well, I suppose I could. But it was I felt like I was in a kind of, for the first 6 months, I felt like I was in a kind of Johnny Knoxville B movie where he's trying to figure out how to, run his own airline or something, because I was like, everything just seemed, I was like, how do I do this? How do I get vinyl sent there? How do I get vinyl made? Like, how do I do any of this? And there was a lot I had to learn really quickly, because you can kind of only make that mistake once. because, you know, a lot of people are relying on you. So yeah, the process was pretty speedy. You had to pick up a lot pretty quickly.
Mm.
But luckily, I mean, I've got a lot of good working relationships within the industry. And mostly you've got a Gabriel lurking behind you. I mean, yeah, I think I don't think I've burnt too many bridges. Like, you know, I'm a pretty nice dude and pretty likable, so I think I get on well with people. So that did definitely help, because when it came to getting stuff done for artists, you know, branding and logos and vinyls printed and distribution sorted and things like that, there was a lot of people I could call on and be like, hey man, like, you know, we go back, could we do this together? And, you know, there's been a lot of, you know, nice friendly people helping along the way.
Mm-hmm. At what point did you feel that you had it and that it was actually gaining traction or going somewhere, or in the toddler stage where you didn't have to constantly be holding it and carrying?
I guess when people, like, just seeing the name on, like picking up a vinyl in a store or something and seeing the word Cynical Music on the back, or seeing someone's album come out on Apple Music or Spotify and seeing Cynical Music at the bottom, people putting it on their like profile as their label or their management, whatever. That was kind of like a moment where I was like, oh, this is a thing now. This isn't just an idea anymore. It's an actual thing. And but I think the big milestone was after the first year of revenue, when I, like, my first year tax returns, like looking at my bank statement of how much money came in that year and went out, and I was like, oh my god, that's actual real money that's kind of gone in and out. And even though the profit margin was still low, it was still some. So that's a cool thing, you know, kind of making something out of nothing. That's my whole ethos, really.
Okay, something out of nothing. Now, speaking of that, how has this last year gone for Syndicol? Because typically bands would be touring and whatnot, but I imagine a lot of the guys on your roster haven't been doing that. So
yeah, I mean, obviously everyone's been trying to do what they can. Some people have been really into the live streaming interactive thing, because they're those kind of personalities. We had like a couple of bands do some really cool stuff last year, like Tokyo Taboo did like a big single. We had a couple of releases, big album releases, quite a few singles, some like interactive stuff. You know, other people just disappeared, sat at the studio and wrote music and just churned out tons and tons of material. You know, I've got bands at the moment who've got like 4 albums worth of material they're sitting on. And some of them are real like touring machines. Other people are like, you know, one person electronic kind of things, and they just stay at home. So it's been a real mixed bag, kind of trying to juggle everything. And, you know, it's 20 odd artists, each with, you know, quite a few members of, you know, in each band. So it's a lot of problems to juggle, and, you know, everyone's got their own personal stuff as well. Mm-hmm. So it's just been trying to be as, I guess, flexible and sympathetic as possible, because everyone's been going through a different thing. But from the actual label's point of view, like on paper, like we've still put out quite a few releases last year. There were still videos going out. There were still singles and albums. We still had stuff lined up for this year. And it also gave me time to do a bit of kind of, I guess, Syndicol housekeeping. You know, looking at what we offer, reining some things back, pushing the other things forward. I took down all our social media because I just felt like it was a waste of time. Yeah, it's. I mean, you just got to make the most of the situation, really, haven't you? And I refuse to just kind of sit there and let something that's out of my control kind of dictate what happens to the label.
Sometimes you just got to do it, or just do it.
Oh, yes, I know. I wear Nike a lot. I get it.
Now, something you mentioned was recoiling back some services, but I mean, I'm on the services section of the website, and you guys do a lot of stuff. There's the label part of it, and I think this is an interesting mentality. Is there's label it with the label, which is separate from marketing, separate from mixing and mastering, which I think that's pretty obvious for some people. But even then, you know, you mentioned the studio, and I hear this from record execs, is bands approach and say, cut us that 6-figure check so we can go sit in the studio.
Sure.
Okay. Manufacturing, design, video, management projects. So basically somebody could come to Syndicol and approach you and say, we just want marketing, or we just want management, or we just want a producer.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously because there's been such huge jumps forward in technology in the last, probably even more so in the last 10 years, a lot more things are available to people. So we get a lot of bands, even either bands we've signed or bands that come to us just wanting help. They're like, well, yeah, we know what we're doing musically. We're going to mix it all ourselves, but we don't have any clue about how to get it out there. Or we know what we want to release and when and with who, but they're a really small crap label. So can we look at you doing a website for us and do our logo and branding? So everyone's got like a totally different set of problems that we're trying to solve. So yeah, we do have people literally who come in and go, I want to write some songs. I don't know how to do it. And like, I want to make a record. And so they need everything from scratch. Whereas other people just need, a little bit of help getting some advertising put together and bits and pieces. So yeah, we just try and kind of fit in with whatever they need. And because we have a couple of people that work for SYNDICOL now, there's a kind of element of delegation and different skill sets in between it. So like Matt, who has been on with me since the beginning, like he knows a whole bunch of other stuff that I don't know about IT and other things. He's like the really logical side of it. I'm the kind of like more like overly creative, bipolar. Let's try and burn a band's name in like the Wembley football ground grass or something. So like yeah, it's good to have different people for different problem solving. And yeah, I don't know. I don't like the idea of just someone ringing me up and going, "Hey, can you do this?" and going, "Nah." Like I just find that really like annoying if that was me. So yeah, I just want to find a way to solve their problem, I guess.
Very cool. Very cool. And then dumb question, but
there are no dumb questions.
The label part of what you guys do is getting it into stores.
Yeah.
Okay.
So very recently we had a friend of mine. She's a painter from Poland, who's also a really cool vocalist, and she just their guitarist. She said he's got a solo project. He's done it. He's mixed it. He's mastered it. It's all done. He's got the artwork. He just doesn't know how to get it out there. I was like, no problem. So there's a whole kind of chain you have to go through of kind of putting together metadata and codes and permissions and various other bits and pieces, which all goes through a distribution channel. And then, yeah, that lands in digital stores. And then the physical side of it as well, getting it into like actual record stores and getting it into websites and bits and pieces. There's a lot of cool things I've learned about distribution as well since I've been doing this. Like a lot of the way they kind of monitor the way music goes up and it's not being copied is a lot of them have software that just recognizes the audio files like anywhere in the world, and they'll just flag them up straight away. So a lot of the bands that we have on our roster, we've had to like get their URLs for their SoundCloud and Instagram and stuff whitelisted, because as soon as they put their music up, it's just taken down, which is really weird to think of, but it's quite cool. It's nice to know that it's being protected, that someone's not just bootlegging their music on YouTube and earning money off it.
Well, part of the reason that we changed the format of the show here, because we used to play songs on this show, and part of the reason that we stopped doing that was because I got tired of every single day checking my email for copyright claims when I'm chatting with the artist set up by the label.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is good, but it's also really annoying. Yeah, it's one of those things I learned on the job, because like I was like, why isn't any of our music online and like where we want it to be? And they were like, yeah, well, it's been blacklisted. So it's one of those little things you learn along the way. And I guess ultimately, like I still feel like a kind of new idiot. And it's really weird. Yeah, a new idiot, because when people come to me and they're like, oh, how do you do this? And I go, well, you do this, 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 and this. And I go, maybe I'm not an idiot anymore. But I still feel like one. But actually, I've figured out most of the ropes now. Yeah, it's a bit of a minefield. If you're an independent artist, like, I mean, damn,
well,
there's just too much stuff to do.
Well, something kind of like a devil's advocate is one of the things you mentioned there is, okay, well, what about DistroKid? Or what about, any of those other things that might be available to somebody?
Yeah. I mean, DistroKid. It certainly does what it says in the tin. You got like CD Baby and TuneCore and all these other kind of companies. On the plus side, you don't have to pay us to put your music up. We'll take our percentage of whatever we agree, which from streaming is very, very low. But it also, from a distribution point of view, it doesn't really involve a lot of work. So I find people like DistroKid and CD Baby charging you like 30, 40, 50 pounds a year to put up an album that just sits there on a server. I'm like, what are you charging that for? Like,
yeah,
it won't be long till there'll be free distribution services. Like, someone will do it soon. And they don't really help you out as well. Like, it's really hard to get anyone on the phone or talk to anybody. Whereas someone who's got a problem with one of my things, they just email me straight away. I'm like, okay, I can take that down. I can change that track name. I can do whatever I need to do. And the guys that we work with on our digital distribution are really cool.
Yeah, it's like a salad bar when you realize that there's cheesecake at the other end of the salad.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're into cheesecake, I don't know.
I am so into cheesecake. It's the best thing ever.
Good. Fantastic. But yeah, no, that definitely answered my question, because I know as an artist, 10, 15 years ago, I was so happy, like, hey, I got myself on iTunes, but I took that stuff down because it wasn't making enough money to justify keeping it up at the cost per year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they do, like, it goes up as well. Like, I remember in the early, would just start going up. So yeah, it kind of sucks like that. But the thing is though, like, a lot of the artists come to us, some of them are just like totally broke. Other of them are like, oh, I'm an investment banker. I've got more money than I could possibly ever spend, and I want to make a crap EDM record. Like, what can you do? I'm like, well, I don't know. What do you want? Like, it really depends on like kind of who needs what done for them. And some people are just like, some people are just like, yeah, okay, no charge for that. I'm just going to stick it up for free. I don't care. Like, it's, it is ultimately about the music, and I'm not going to be a businessman first, because that just kind of makes me a tool.
Oh, okay. Well, looks like we chatted about the beginnings of Syndicol music, wanting to go back to that desire of the middle ground label. We chatted about this question: what is over there? That was kind of like a big focal point of understanding what it is that you want to have amplified, and that could be any gamut of things. Yeah, services that the label provides, distribution. Vinyl was mentioned quite a few times, which is expensive, but it looks like something that you care about.
Yeah, I just, when it comes to vinyl, yeah, it is expensive, and unless you're shifting a lot of units, you're probably not going to make much of a profit. But you only release an album once. Like, just if you want to see your music immortalized on a record, then just do it. Like, yeah, it might cost a bit, but so what? Like, figure it out. There's always a way around everything. And I'd rather have it there for people to listen to and look at. Another thing that people never realize, they never ever think about this, is that, there are kids born today who have just been born who in 18 years are going to be picking up one of, my band's albums and being like, oh, these guys are awesome. And people forget that. Like, they forget that those vinyls are going to still be around in 20, 30 years. Like, being sold on eBay and collected by people who now, think of their band as like a seminal, kind of band of the decade. And people forget that. People think it has to be instant for it to count. And it really doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Just like love.
Yes.
All right. And at that, is there anything that you wanted to chat about today that I did not bring up, Monsieur Dawe?
I would say, if bands have got questions, anything, just they can email me. I'm always happy to chat. And I think there's a lot to be said for just being a total hustler when it comes to this stuff. Like, if you want to get your music out there, do not expect to upload it, to put it on Spotify, and to put it on YouTube, and for people to care one iota about it. Like, but that doesn't mean that you can't make it, because I've heard so many people sat round a pub, some 60-year-old bitter ex-musician going, oh, you have to be in the right place at the right time. It's like, no, you just weren't very good. Like if you actually push yourself and you apply yourself to what you need to do to get there, you can get there. There's not like a set amount of musicians that are allowed to become famous every year. So there is a way around everything, and you'd be amazed that by exploiting the resources you already have, like you'd be amazed at who you know already without realizing, and who you can get in touch with, and finding the right email. I once sent, I think it was 65 incorrect emails to a famous music manager who shall remain nameless until I got the right one. Until I think it was the 66th didn't bounce back. And I was like, that's his email. And then I got in touch with him. And it was tedious. It took a long time. But I managed to get my music into some very important people's hands. It's just being creative and grafting and hustling. And there's just so many extraordinary and interesting ways to make your band work.
Sounds like you were in the right place at the right time there, Charlie.
I was. Yes, I used the right laptop on the right day. But yeah, like if anyone has any questions, any of your listeners want to ask anything, pick my brain or anything, just, by all means, shout me an email.
Yeah, what we'll do is in the show notes down below. So if you're tuning in right now on Spotify or on our website, rockmetalpodcast.ca, or watching on YouTube, then in the show notes below will be a link for the website, syndicalmusic.com, and then I will also have Gabriel put in the email address, I believe is labeled at syndicalmusic.com.
Yeah, that's my one, yeah.
Okay, so we'll do that. And then in the meantime, thank you so much, sir, for coming on and sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, your experiences with us.
Thank you very much. What wonderful treats are you baking today at home?
That's a good question. We just made buttermilk white chocolate cranberry scones. And
that sounds pretty damn good.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's just a scone, but I mean, they love it. And
yeah, it's just a classic chocolate chip dish.
Yeah. We also just made angel food cake because we make our own ice cream now, and we make both kinds, custard with egg yolks, and then you have all these egg whites. Like, what do I do with it? Angel food cake. So we have some angel food cake. I just made some chocolate ice cream, and then I also just tried ice cream that is not a custard, so it's just milk and sugar, but I put in some banana puree to help smooth out the texture so it's not so grainy. So we have like a banana ice cream. And then we thought, what happens if we get a really nice dark chocolate and make a dark chocolate banana ice cream? And then I said, and then what if we made peanut butter cookies?
I mean, all those things would go very well in a bowl.
Yeah. And then what did we make recently? Oh, yeah. We got a very nice Beaujolais. So we made a roast with mashed potatoes and broccoli. Very, very simple, but it went very well with the Beaujolais. And the Beaujolais we got from Costco. So if you're not familiar with Costco, it is a massive warehouse in North America that has buying power. So because of that, Beaujolais was $14.
For a barrel.
Yeah, exactly.
I have one drum of Beaujolais, please. Fair enough.
Yeah. And then I think tonight is just leftovers. And I've been on a polenta kick. I've been eating a lot of polenta lately. I go on polenta.
Someone has to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it silly Canadian cold over there at the moment, or is it reasonable?
It depends on how you want to feel about that. It is currently minus 19. The low is minus.
So that is silly.
Yeah, there's an extreme cold warning because with the wind, it can feel up to minus 40 to minus 60 depending on where you're standing in that wind.
Yeah.
Wow, that's deeply unpleasant.
Yeah, true story, funny story. I was working up north a number of years ago, and up north the high was minus 40 and the low was minus 60 without wind chill. Standing in the wind chill, it could be minus 82 lower. And I worked up there for a few weeks, got acclimated to it. And then I came down here, which is not really down. We're still very far north. But we went from like the North Pole, like down. So, and it was a high of minus 20, low of minus 40. And I got off the plane and I had on my parka and I was like, it's warm. I took my parka off. So I heard somebody say once that there's just varying degrees of heat. And I agree with that. That minus 20 is just, warmer than other temperatures. So.
Well, I mean, I have a Lebanese wife, so this is basically like some sort of capital punishment for her.
Mm-hmm.
If she's not in a Mediterranean climate all the time, she's quite unhappy. Yeah, I mean, it's all right over here. It's pretty chilly. It's just pretty grim being grey London at the moment.
Oh, no.
Anyway, it could be worse.
Exactly. We'll take her to the Ottolenghi place. Get her some...
we looked that up, actually, after last time. Yeah, I'm going to take her there and get her some kind of stuffed mushroom or something.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's what you get for a woman you love, a stuffed mushroom.
Yeah.
Beautiful. What else we make? We made sourdough dinner rolls, both whole wheat and... I call it white. I still put about 2% whole wheat in there. Just sneak in a little bit of love.
You must exercise so much to stay in shape. Like, I don't know how you can eat this much food, good food, and just not be enormous. Like, I don't understand.
And then we have sourdough whole wheat pasta.
That's right. We make our own pasta now. So, and we like the whole wheat pasta. So, I'm really happy about that. I'm actually really, really, really happy about the fact that
I saw something the other day that I want to make that was chocolate-filled gnocchi, and I was like, that looks amazing. Like, that does look very good.
Yeah. I have made gnocchi in the past. It's a process. It's one of those things that you have to take the time to get good at it. Otherwise, it's gummy, or it falls apart, or the texture's off. But, I mean, if you can make it, dinner at your house. But yeah, no, I watch what I eat. I track my calories. Because we eat good food, I don't think I feel the necessity to eat that much. Like sourdough whole wheat bread is significantly better than store-bought white bread.
Sure. I feel like this is a different podcast now.
It is a different podcast. We've transitioned. This is the part where people actually tuned in. We're going to see the ratings of the podcast where, everybody drops off after the first 30 seconds, and all of a sudden, randomly, at the 27-minute mark, people are just jumping up.
You should put it in the comments, in the titles, though. Like, tune in today to find out what label head Charlie Dore thinks about spelt. And, we can discuss other grains and, pulses.
Oh, no. Well, I've started putting that into the podcast. That's a training bit for Gabriel, is I've noticed, after all these years, that other, like, magazines and shows always put in random tidbits, like, Charlie and John chat, gamut and spelt, and, whatever else. Whole grain cookery.
Yeah.
And chocolate-filled gnocchi, and people are going to be tuning. I want to know about that.
Yeah.
So I want to know about George Lynch.
I want to know about George Lynch. I love George Lynch. I've been listening to a lot of Dawkins lately. A lot of Dawkins. Yeah, I came across a Canadian guitar pickup manufacturer who apparently has been around for years and has chosen quality over quantity, but because of where its proximity to like DiMarzio and Seymour Duncan, he apparently is known by those people. But anyway, I came across this guy, and I was on his website, and he'll make custom pickups for you. Like, that's his whole thing. So he was asking, like, what kind of guitar tone do you like? And so I haven't emailed him yet, but I was thinking, like, well, I'll just go get that person's gear then. But then I was kind of realizing that, like, well, no, everybody has different gear. So if I like George Lynch's tone, which is like a Seymour Duncan ESP Strat style going through a Marshall 1979 JMP, that's very different from, say, like Dravidian by Machine Head, which is EMG 81 through a custom wired 5050. But, gotta find it.
Yeah.
And then I got stuck in the Dawkins, and I was rocking out because I wish music still sounded like that, but it doesn't. So
yeah.
There is still some good stuff coming out though at the moment. I'll send you a list.
Okay.
Of new things I discovered.
Beautiful. All right, so chocolate filled gnocchi and Syndicol music, and there it is. Oh yeah, and I work out, and I do kung fu 5 to 6 days a week. I'm in class for it twice a week. And then we're just waiting.
How did I not know that you do kung fu? Because I do kung fu.
I know, we talked about this the last time you were on, and you seemed very sheepish for a second. I was like, "Oh, you do kung fu? What style?" And you wouldn't answer that question.
I don't remember that. Oh, I do kung fu. That's really weird. What do you do?
Praying mantis.
Maybe I thought you were just like jerking me off, and like maybe I thought you were just fooling around. Because I I know what you're like. I know what you're like, and I was like, maybe the sarcasm is so dry on this that he's just like he's messing with me, and I didn't take it seriously.
No,
yeah.
no. Back in September, late August, because I used to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and an Okinawan form of karate, like 15 years ago, 20 almost 20 years ago at this point. I was in high school, and all of high school I did these martial arts, and then just life happened throughout my 20s, moving to different places, going to university, just lots of things. So I got away from it, and I kept thinking, oh, I'll get back into it. And then the economy tanked here like 5 years ago. I just couldn't afford it. And I'm now finally in a place where I'm like, hey, I've got some extra money. Let's get back into it. And then 2020 happened. So there went a lot of things out the window. But towards the end of the year, some stuff was opening in a very safe way, which is now shut down. So we're waiting for spring so that we can just do it in a park. I say to do it now at minus 40. It'll make a man out of your praying mantis. But yeah, so I wanted a traditional Chinese martial arts school, so I found a nonprofit, super traditional, does like Chinese New Year events kind of place, and they do Chuk Tai Chi, which is based off of Plum Blossom, which is based off of 7-Star Praying Mantis. So actually the founder's great-granddaughter attends the school. So the dude in the black and white pictures that you see, like great-granddaughter at the school. So it has lineage, and they do Yang Tai Chi as well. So I started getting into Tai Chi 24, and I know Gonglakin, and 8 stances, and a bunch of single moves. Been doing it on Zoom. And yeah, so now we're just, because like, for example, they just came up with this new thing that, okay, so some gyms can open if it's a private session. Okay, well, that doesn't really make much sense for us. Okay, well, if you're a dance school, then you could have 10 dancers in masks. Okay, well, what about martial arts then? Can I have 10 martial arts guys doing Tai Chi? Like, could I? So they're just like, screw this. As soon as the weather gets nice, we're going to go to a park. We're going to bring, yeah.
When I'm in Canada next, we can meet up for a duel on a misty peak.
Yes.
And the winner cooks for the loser. All the way around.
Good thing I hate cooking. Actually, you should see me in the kitchen. My wife is always like, "You're always telling something to go get F." Like, I'm like, yeah.
That's what proper chefs do.
Yeah. Probably true.
It is.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Well, it was always lovely to talk to you.
Mm-hmm. I'll go and hit stop now. Longest, beautiful interview about chocolate-filled ganache. Praying mantis kung fu.
Ding ding.
Visiting Canada. Yeah, you were supposed to move here 2 years ago, but then something happened. I think it was coronavirus.
No, totally. We were looking around 2019. We were like, yeah, let's get this done. We booked our reconnaissance mission for early 2020. And then we've kind of pushed that back until probably end of this year. So depending on what happens.
Cool. All right. Sweet. Chocolate filled ganache, praying mantis kung fu, visiting Canada, managing a record label. Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Charlie.
Thank you very much, buddy. It was nice to speak to you.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy your day. And I am going to go and drink my barrel of water. And it's the only way I can stay hydrated. I got one of these big things. I fill it up in the morning. I have to finish it by dinner time. And I haven't done very much. So, yeah.
Right.
Bye.
Yeah.